Hello everybody and welcome to ChessDiagnostic. This is Andrew and today we're going to look at a game that I saw about a year ago. I think it was in a tournament or something. I don't know how I saw it, but it looked very familiar and it came up as a puzzle for me. And what's very interesting about this game is that there's an intermediary move that could have easily won the game, but it's quite complicated. So we'll just look at the game overall, start at the beginning. It's black wins, so we're going to look from the black side. Starts with e4, d5, the Scandinavian defense. And there's really nothing notable about this game up until the position, except for the fact that it's quite ordinary and there's no amazing moves that you can find, and that's the majority of games you're going to play. Alright, so develops, preparing to sack a pawn for development, gets it back, and I think they've transposed, well actually another in the Panov attack, which I prefer to play as white. Alright, so e6, really nothing, he probably should have taken with the pawn there. Alright, so now white has this backward pawn, and obviously black can attack it, but it's relatively dynamic, and he has some chances on the king side. White does at least. Castles. Now notice that black is rather bare on the king side, and you'll see that if white is able to adequately defend and use his bishops in the center and on the queen side, then normally he'll get a king side attack. So black plays a little slow. Obviously he wants to expand, but he probably should have brought this knight out. And normally you can bring the bishop here as well, that's fine, and get the knight out to here via a5 and c4. Alright, so rook out, bishop to b7, developing, as I said, a little slow. And he takes, but allowing the rook to be active. Probably knight to f6 was a little better, although it's all pretty equal at this point. So white has this backward pawn that's pretty weak, and he does have some chances on the king side, although it's going to be really hard to break through because now these bishops of blacks will be able to defend the king side as well as draw up some of his own threats. And this rook, even though it's forward, it doesn't really increase his activity, and it can become an object of attack actually. Alright, so this is the interesting position after he plays g6 and then bishop back. So white takes, and I remember seeing this position or a similar type of position, and the king just takes back. I'm sure that was just an intuitive move, and he just thought it was a trade. So what would you play here? Obviously it's kind of a tactical puzzle, but there's a very interesting move that I played in another game of my own, and that's why I recognized it, and that's actually taking, instead of the king takes, you take with the pawn, and it's very unintuitive because you think now he has it discovered, but actually that pawn is threatening the queen, and if he takes that pawn, then you can just take that bishop and you're up an entire rook. So a very interesting sequence follows, which is rather forced. You have to see all this attacking the queen again. Now he could come up, but you can actually, or you're actually able to, let's see here, so queen, and then you could play h5. So you have enough pawns, very specific here. Obviously you wouldn't want to play there because then there's a check with the bishop. And then the queen's deflected and there's no way to protect this bishop. Because if the bishop moves, then you'll just take and then you win way too much material. The game's over. Alright, so he can play here, but then you have to see this pawn move. Now if he can't move back because of the pawn, and there's no way to defend the bishop, although he gets a check. After bishop check, the king can take. So it was a pretty quick win. I think it was like a 5-move combination, maybe 4 moves. But very interesting position from here, and except of course I'm not going to go through the rest of the game because he didn't play that, he just took. And he did eventually win. But I thought that was a very interesting idea to always check for those intermediary moves when you have a weakened king position. And it's really just boils down to always keeping in mind that the best defense is always an offense. So Yeah, anyway, just getting a video out here today. I'll resume the rook endings, and I'm going to try to mix it up, do some game analysis as well. Just getting back into the swing of things. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the future.